welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers by gamers. I'm Barjo.
And I'm Hex, and I've got my trusty magic wand here. I'm hoping to cast a spell of good gameplay on the latest Harry Potter movie tie-in.
We also take on the Cartel in Call of Juarez, the Cartel.
Plus, the gorgeous-looking action RPG Bastion does its best to entrance us.
They trap the kid in the middle of the fort's parade ground.
And field reporter Goose looks at how some people are hacking motion control for all sorts of weird and wonderful uses.
But before all that, can you guess the game for this week?
Get the colonists online.
I don't believe this. This is not your cause. They don't stand a chance.
Prepare the shuttle, please, before I change my mind.
Well, I'm off to read the news.
Newsus Transportiosa!
Good game.
BioWare has confirmed that their upcoming Star Wars MMO, The Old Republic, will not be available in Australia when the game launches elsewhere in the world. Good Game's Stephanie Hexband-Dixon tweeted from E3 this year that Australia would have to wait until after E3 2012 for its release, based on a statement by a PR representative. BioWare has now confirmed the delay, explaining it is due to overwhelming demand and that it's necessary to ensure a smooth launch for the MMO. BioWare has also stated they cannot commit to any time frame for the game's release outside of America and Europe. Ohio-based company Impulse Technology is suing Microsoft, alleging the Kinect sensor infringes on 7 of their patents. The patents in question cover both a system for tracking movement as well as possible games based on the technology. As a result, many publishers who have made Kinect games are also defendants in the case, including Electronic Arts, Sega, Konami, Harmonix, Ubisoft, and THQ. Impulse is seeking an injunction against all of the companies and their relevant games, as well as unspecified monetary damages.
Oh, we'll get those other coins next time.
Several new studios have recently formed, featuring some of the industry's top talent. Key members of both Mafia developer 2K Czech and Arma developer Bohemia Interactive have combined to form independent Prague-based studio Warhorse.
Now you can start thinking about what you're gonna do next.
They're currently working on an unnamed RPG. Meanwhile, co-founder of Irrational Games John Che has set up Blue Man Chew, a one-man Canberra-based studio developing a free-to-play RPG card game for PC.
I play Lightning Bolt.
Ian Trout, one of Australia's greatest game designers and founder and president of Strategic Studies Group, has sadly lost his battle with cancer. SSG was responsible for creating the classic PC strategy titles Warlords, Warlords Battlecry, and Reach for the Stars, the latter of which is credited as helping to create the 4X genre of space strategy games. A young Chinese couple, both under 21, have been caught selling their 3 children for money in order to play games. Their first child was a girl who they sold for under $400. Their second and third children, both boys, went for just under $4,000 each. The couple were reported to police by the man's mother when she discovered the children had been sold.
Good game.
Well, as the final Harry Potter movie hit the cinemas, so too was the last movie tie-in game released, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Hex, I know a lot of fans will probably pick this up out of sheer fandom, but I don't think even diehards could put up with what's on offer here.
Yes, you've read the book, you've seen the movie, now avoid the game like the plague, lest your memory of Harry Potter's epic conclusion be somehow tainted by what can only be described as a short, half-assed cover shooter that's boring beyond belief.
It's shit.
I need to get inside Gringotts Bank, into one of the vaults.
It is impossible.
Alone, yes. With you, no.
The Sword of Gryffindor is my price.
First of all, you'll play as a range of different characters that appear in the film, but the spells you use are all the same, so there's really no point in switching from a gameplay perspective other than the game forces you to do it anyway.
Yeah, you have to learn all of these spells throughout the game, but why is Harry even learning spells at this point? These are all basic spells that were in the first few films. This is the final chapter. It makes no sense for Harry to start off so gimped.
Stupefy!
You start off where the film does, disguising yourself as Bellatrix so you can break into her vault at Gringotts and retrieve one of the Horcruxes.
Yeah, and I figured, you know, being already familiar with the story, the one thing I can at least look forward to is a minecart level and riding a dragon out of Gringotts. But no, the only thing you do in this game is engage in wave after wave of boring cover shootouts with random baddies, while all the cool stuff is played out for you in cutscenes.
That was brilliant!
It's boring, it's simple, and there aren't even any puzzles or anything.
You'll be casting spells that range from rapid fire to explosive blasts to a shield-like spell, and all of these take time to recharge. So instead of spamming one, you do have to cycle between them all. Most of your initial spells are assigned to the face buttons, and when you learn the heavier ones, you use them by double tapping the buttons. Once you learn all the spells, you get pretty much into a routine of double tap X, double tap Y, double tap B, rinse and repeat. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, isn't it? That's the most efficient approach to combat, and you really do want this whole experience to just be over as quickly as possible. And what's worse is Hermione uses some spell to open doors, which seems to take forever. I've never seen a spell take that long. It's just a crappy device to slow you down and fight more goons. The worst level was one where you had to play as Neville and assist Seamus from a high vantage point and just mindlessly shoot dudes from above. Like a sniper mission, but without the joy of precision or fun. Also, the lock-on targeting isn't great. You'll still need to have the reticule pretty damn close to the target if you want to hit anything.
Some enemies will shield themselves, and you'll need to use a specific spell to break it before switching to your attack spells, but that's about as interesting as the combat gets.
Yeah, and normally I wouldn't talk about the last fight in a game, but this was such a joke. I mean, we just had to. Big spoiler warning if you haven't seen the film, though.
Mad spoilers. Now.
Your final fight in the game is against Voldemort himself.
Avada Kedavra!
This consists of a wand-off where you have to move the thumbstick around to keep the focal point on Voldy. This lasts for a couple of minutes and then it's all over. You watch the final cutscene and then there's credits. The whole game takes a little over 4 hours to complete. You heard me, 4 hours.
The only cool thing about this game is that during the final credits you see a montage of every Harry Potter game, so it's interesting seeing how they all evolved, or devolved. In addition to that, you'll unlock challenge modes throughout the game, which literally just means you get to play through all of the same levels all over again, only this time without lock-on targeting and a timer to see how fast you can get through it. Thanks, guys.
There are a bunch of stupid running missions thrown in there as well, like too many. I mean, does anyone even like these, especially when you can't even see where you're going? I mean, this is quite possibly the laziest game design I've ever come across. And there's not much else to say about it, really.
Yeah, it's horrible. And I know we talk about the movie tie-in curse a lot, but this is just the worst, and I couldn't in good conscience recommend it to any Harry Potter fan. I'm giving it 2 out of 10 rubber chickens.
I mean, this is an insult to Harry Potter fans and the franchise, and it's incomprehensible because the rest of the Potter universe has been treated with such respect, and then this is what's on offer for gamers. I mean, you'd have way more fun with something like Lego Harry Potter or just watching the film again. Do yourself a favor and stay far, far away from this one. I'm giving it 2 as well.
My very first gaming love was Miner 2049er on the Atari 800 XL. I actually remember the day when I was 4 years old and my dad walked in the door with, it was a big surprise. He bought our very first computer, this Atari 800, and I was eating peas at the dinner table. He said that when he brought it home, he knew he couldn't have brought it home without bringing a joystick and a couple of games.
And what was it about that game specifically that made you love it so much?
I was 4 and it was a video game, and that's what made me love it. No, it was cute, it was colorful, it was, I mean, being a 4-year-old in the early 80s, this was a revolution, right? Like, it was just part of I think our generation's DNA to be captivated by this idea of like, well, I've watched TV and now I can control TV. You know, that was the best thing ever.
One of the most surprising games I was able to get my hands on at this year's E3 was a little indie title called Bastion. It looks kind of cute and unassuming at first glance, but it actually has a really experienced dev team behind it. And once you start playing, you'll quickly realize that it's really something quite unique.
Bastion is the story of an adventurer known only to us as the Kid.
Now here's a kid whose whole world got all twisted, leaving him stranded on a rock in the sky. He gets up, sets off for the Bastion, where everyone agreed to go in case of trouble.
The story narration begins when you awaken as the Kid and continues to narrate every move you make from then on. This is really cleverly done, and you actually become quite attached to this disembodied voice who's there with you every step of the way, describing your heroic moments, lamenting your mistakes. And when I found this hammer and decided to spend a few gleeful moments just testing it out,
Kid just rages for a while.
It also feels like all of your actions are building this wonderful story. Since the land has been torn apart, much of the terrain you'll be exploring forms itself as you go, and occasionally crumbles away around you too. So part of the challenge is just staying on solid ground and not hurtling to your doom.
Quick and careful is the only way to go.
Essentially, this is an action RPG. You'll be leveling up, gaining experience, and getting lots of sweet gear which you can customize and upgrade. If you'd like to see what this game has taken inspiration from, you can check the developer's website, because a lot of things here have come from a lot of different places.
Yeah, it's definitely reminiscent of games like Diablo and even some early 16-bit RPGs. The art style is just gorgeous. It's a really vibrant color palette with cute but sophisticated character design, and the way each piece of the path just puzzle pieces together in front of you is really organic and fluid, guiding you in various directions towards new adventures. Plus, there's witty humour woven into just about everything. One of the potions I got was called Stabsynth.
You'll face off against a variety of enemies along your journey, and this is where the game gets a bit arcade-like, as waves and waves of them just come at you. The kid will sometimes take a bit of a pounding, but there's plenty of health potions around, so you can take a few risks in combat. Usually get at least one more chance to make a comeback when you die too.
The two-legged animals.
Failing that, you'll have to restart the level, but each area is a short, fun morsel of monster-bashing goodness, so you never feel too aggrieved.
You'll acquire a pretty awesome arsenal of both melee and ranged weapons, as well as a special move which you can use when you have an ability potion to activate it. And you can chop and change these combinations between worlds when you visit the Bastion. I really liked that you can cater this to your play style. I mean, I like to keep my distance, and the rapid-fire bow and the dueling pistols were great for dispatching enemies if you don't want to get too close. You'll also make great use of your dodge roll, although it's a fast roll that covers a lot of ground, and the areas you'll be playing in are quite small, and sometimes the ground is falling away from you, and quite often you'll find yourself just rolling off into oblivion.
I like that each weapon is varied. It makes you approach combat in a different way each time. I just loved this blunderbuss. It has such a large area of effect, and when I first picked it up, I just went nuts with it. It became my new favorite weapon, and the game picked up on that.
Kids blasting everything in sight with that newfangled musket.
Enemies will be constantly hitting you with flames and projectiles, so it's important to be firing on the move, but some ranged weapons can only be shot while standing still. Difficulty is handled really interestingly in this game. You'll meet gods throughout who offer you challenges with greater rewards for going for the difficult option. So there's real incentive for not taking the easy road.
Yeah, I loved that. I mean, I'm so used to coming across perks in games, so when I went into that first temple, I was like, what? That doesn't sound like it's gonna help me at all, so I bailed.
Kid don't need favors from the likes of Piv.
But then I realized, and I was like, wait a minute, Hex, don't be lame, just do it.
On second thought, maybe he does.
The extra work you'll need to do to take down baddies means more fragments to spend on goodies, so it's really worth doing for both the challenge and the reward. I have to say, I was a little bit disappointed that there was no co-op. I mean, this is such an original game, I really wanted to show it to people, but when I invited my friends around, we kind of just had to take turns playing it. It would have been really fun to be able to just bash our way through together. Then again, I'm not sure that would have worked with the concept of the narration describing your individual story.
Hopefully, if there's a sequel, that'll be the next evolutionary step for Bastion. Final thoughts?
Bastion feels really fresh and original. It's good arcade fun, but it's not button mashy, and there's just so many layers to the game. I just love the art style too, and I really hope there's more of it, so I'm giving it 9 out of 10 rubber chickens.
I found myself wishing I had someone to narrate everything I do around the office.
He directs his browser to the World of Warcraft forums. The kid trolls a variety of threads. He waits for the replies and revels in his work.
I kept coming back to this because of the variety in the weapons, and I really enjoyed building up my Bastion. It does get a bit repetitive in the combat, but I think that's just because there's so much of it, so I'm giving it 8 out of 10 rubber chickens.
We caught up with one of the developers of Bastion, and you can see that full interview on our website.
Good game.
With almost every console releasing its own form of motion controller, it's not surprising then that techies worldwide are dissecting this hardware and finding new and interesting uses for it. So we went out and spoke to some Aussies who are doing just that.
My name is Tim Watts, and I'm the performer, writer, creator of The Adventures of Alvin Sputnik, Deep Sea Explorer. It's about Alvin Sputnik, who, after losing his wife in this post-apocalyptic world, dives after her soul to try and be with her once more, and along the way finds a new place for humanity to live.
what part does the Wiimote play in the show?
There's a bunch of animation in the show and sound cues, and I operate the whole show by myself on stage, all the lights, all the sound. So the Wiimote actually sits in a little tool belt that I've got, and when I need to kick on the next cue, I just reach down and hit the A button, which then talks to my computer via Bluetooth and cues the next moment in the show.
Dislodge the hollow from the ocean floor and send it rocketing towards the surface.
How did you go about using the technology to use it for your stage show?
I actually started off, I watched a couple of Johnny Lee videos on the internet, who's a guy who loves repurposing this thing, and I actually started off wanting to use it as an interactive whiteboard with an infrared light pen, but then I ended up just getting this program called Darwinmote. This is the program here, and so you sync it up with your computer, and then, as you can see, this is sort of doing the motion thing. So if I shake this, it makes that go there. And then you can also assign the different buttons, different keystrokes. So when I hit the A button, that's coming up there. I assign spacebar to the A button with a keystroke, and then as a failsafe, I've got the 1 button as like a play all. If I hit the A button, that'll pause, and then that's my failsafe. I press number 1, and that keeps running. And then that one there will finish up, and then I get the next little cue on this.
Why did you choose the Wiimote and not just a regular remote?
So I'm a bit of a nerd at heart, and I like the idea of controlling it by a Wiimote. And the show's set in like a post-apocalyptic future, so in a way I was kind of like, well, in the future something like a Wiimote will be kind of steampunky.
Would you see that sort of a future of combining a lot of these sort of gaming peripherals or motion controllers with things like art and stage shows?
I think it's already happening. It's just there's so much brilliant technology condensed into these real consumer products, and when you repurpose them, they can be useful for so many different things that they were never intended for. And so I think it's already happening, and I think it'll happen more.
Here in Sydney, some local artists are using a Kinect to turn passers-by into human paintbrushes.
Well, we approached Events New South Wales with a range of ideas for a sort of exhibit piece that mixed light, art and movement together. Built this whole application, which is a motion gesture-based tracking system that allows a user to basically use their body, their hands, their sort of movement, and splash paint all over the side of the MCA in a fully sort of engaging and interactive manner.
We thought we would use Hacked Connect. There's been a lot of great stuff done with that lately, and try and make it a bit more of a physical experience. So we've been paying attention to all the great developments online with this kind of tech, and taking some great kind of freely available code around to drive the Connect and do some great skeleton tracking. We were able to then take that and write our own custom software to make use of those techniques, and then come up with this installation.
And so this is the technology behind it all?
Yeah, so you can see we've got this little black and white image, which is the infrared camera image. And then on the left-hand side, that colored image is actually a depth map. So the warmer the color, the further it is away from the camera. Now, if we do the calibration, you can see that now it's actually picked up my skeleton. So sadly, we're only really using the hands for this install, but it'd be great to do another one where people are painting with their feet or something. Great. Oh.
Doesn't like me.
So we're always kind of trying to stay on top of all the new interactive tech. And of course, the gaming industry is one that you definitely have to keep your eye on. Not only is it fast moving, but the great thing is that the gear that comes out is generally pretty affordable. I've gone down a couple times and hidden in the bushes to see how it's received, and it's been really great. You know, when you get so close to these projects, you always have your kind of reservations about its imperfections and the like. There's always, with the first run, a few things you learn, like we needed definitely a different set of instructions to get the kids to be configured correctly, but we're really turning up on site, just seeing everyone having fun. It's been great.
It's time to answer the call, Hex. The call of Juarez.
Oh yeah, It don't stop, homie.
What we have up in my city, we be known for gang bang activity. Duct tape your face while we ride through the city. We some sick individuals, two striking criminals, fogging up the windows full of window when I take a pull. I ride around through my hood strap, rolling up on any bodies cause the audio is like that.
When a bombing takes out an informant who's about to squeal on a Mexican drug cartel, 3 law enforcement agents, Ben McCall, Kim Evans, and Eddie Scaryface, team up to take down the drug lords. You can choose to play as any of these 3 characters, and each have their own strengths, weaknesses, and story to tell.
I'm a sucker for a Western, Hex, and I really enjoyed Call of Juarez Bound in Blood. I thought they did a really good job with that one, but what they've attempted to do here is modernize the Western by setting it in present day, and I don't think they've quite pulled it off. And it mainly comes down to the characterizations rather than the setting or anything else. Classic Western heroes are often humble, perhaps righteous, and with a past in need of redemption, but you don't really get that from these modernized, smack-talking cops.
Oh, you should keep better company, Suze.
Oh, you want to make an honest woman out of me, Ben?
Besides the music and the odd Western-inspired locale, it really didn't feel like a Western to me either, modernized or otherwise. The goons you go up against are animated quite well, but they're straight out of Saints Row, and they just didn't have that environment charm of a good Western either. It's just a real mishmash of genres.
Yeah, they muddied the waters a bit, didn't they?
Better make sure you still have your wallet, eh? Let's go, smartass.
At first I thought the voice acting was quite good and I was enjoying all of the dialogue, but then it just turns horribly cliched.
You have the right to die, and if you need a lawyer, that's too fucking bad. Do you understand your rights as they have been read to you, bitches?
And even Ben's best lines get ruined, and he's the most Westernish character out of the 3 of them.
And I saw a pale horse, and he who sits upon it, and his name is Death. And he has a bullet with your fucking name on it.
Just terrible. After a few of those, I actually turned the volume down for a bit.
Much of the game is set around the dusty streets of LA, but you'll also be sent into the forest to burn cartel plantations.
That's a lot of damn weed.
Or cause havoc in bars and clubs, and every game needs a log factory level. You can't stray off the path too much, but I really liked the open look of these locations, and that dance floor area was just awesome.
Yo, this place is packed.
I wish I could dance like that.
I've seen you dance like that. But the highlight of this area, and well, the whole game really, was when you got to bust onto the dance floor and pick off enemies in the crowd in slow motion.
Shoot 'em!
FBI! Everybody down!
There is a reasonable selection of weapons, but they don't look or handle as good as other modern shooters, and I never got used to the recoil. I did like having 3 weapon slots though, 1 main weapon and then 2 pistols. It means when you run out of ammo you can just flip to the next one, flip to the next one. But going akimbo pistols felt a bit pointless, even when you're playing as Ben, who is the short range fighter, because you just don't have enough health to get up close and use them.
Health regeneration takes a bit too long as well, especially with how little of it you have. There's a cover system of sorts allowing you to automatically peek out and lean left and right, and that works quite well. And now and then you'll need to distract an enemy army of 2 style so your partners can run forward. But these sections were a bit confusing to do, and for the most part you just leg it and hope for the best. There are also a fair few driving missions where your partners keep enemies at bay while you follow the checkpoint marker. These driving bits are decent enough, and it's certainly nice to have a bit of freedom in those larger areas to just zip about.
I did find though, whenever I was playing online with a bunch of randoms, they would often just go the wrong way and fail the checkpoint. And this plays into the biggest problem in this game, which is directing human players down a linear path in environments that feel quite open and have lots of little nooks and crannies. It's got 3-player co-op, which is great, but we do tend to wander, and that means that it quite often fails an objective for no reason that you can see, just because someone else has done something weird.
There is a checkpoint marker for you to follow. It's a big low-res ball of white, and even with this constantly and somewhat intrusively pointing you in the right direction, you still can't find it from time to time. It'll even move on without you, or you'll just get lost, which means your teammates will be waiting for you to find them. You can even get a sudden mission fail because someone fell too far behind, or walked outside a zone, or triggered an event too far ahead. You can be driving a car to a gate, for example, and then drive a little too far past it, and bam, mission failed. Then it reloads you at the gate you were heading for.
And each time you fail, the game makes you wait this pointless and painful 15 seconds before you can reload the checkpoint, and all this does is encourage people to drop out.
Yeah, it disorientates and fragments the whole flow of the game.
One very good thing about the co-op is the secret agendas. Each character randomly, mostly all together, receive a phone call during the missions, giving them a secret objective, such as stealing items or planting bugs. These quite cleverly play into the characters' motives and storylines, and the trick is to be successful in your secret objective, you need to do it while the other players can't see you. This means you'll be constantly keeping an eye on your co-op buddies and watching them in case they stray from the pack. And this one point, Hex, I was following this guy around for about 10 minutes as he opened and closed doors trying to steal something, and I just kept busting in to go, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? He's shooting at me. Ah, it's great.
It's a fun idea, isn't it? It makes for a great love-hate relationship between you and your co-op partners. And there are other challenges as well where you'll be going up against each other for XP. I just wish the XP you got from these challenges and agendas had a little bit more impact. You know, they just unlock a bunch of guns that you can get lying around each level anyway.
Yeah, there are so many good ideas like that in this game, but I think they worked well on paper, but they just haven't been implemented very well in the final product, and that's not even counting the bugs and crashes that we encountered, of which there are a few.
Watch out! Plant a bug while you're raising hell gun rolling. Get him to the FBI lab. Discreet about it.
I had such high hopes for this game after Bound in Blood, but I didn't have much fun here, so I'm giving it 5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
What killed it for me was the lack of drop-in, drop-out co-op. I mean, this means that if somebody leaves your game, which they will do out of frustration, then you're stuck with the AI until the end of the whole chapter, and they don't heal you, so by that point you won't feel like restarting anyway. You also have to pick and stay with your character before joining the lobbies. That limits finding other players as well. It's a real disappointment badge. I'm giving it 4 out of 10.
We want to talk to Jesus.
That can be arranged, amigo. All you have to do is get on your knees, put your hands together, and pray.
Good game.
So did you guess the game for this week? It was the first-person tactical shooter Chrome from 2003. In it, you played a bounty hunter named Logan who could strengthen himself with a variety of Deus Ex-like implants. It was developed for PC by Call of Juarez developer Techland.
They're the same devs that are working on Dead Island as well.
So many facts. Hex, would you like to know what's coming up on next week's show?
Sure.
Because I could tell you. Okay. We're going to be looking at the world manipulation of From Dusk.
Which means we can go backwards compatible on all of those games you'd call world builders.
We'll also be smashing some orcs in Warhammer 40k Kill Team.
Thanks to everyone who live tweeted with us, and remember you can tell us what you did or didn't like about the show on our forums or our epic Facebook page. Until next time, gamers, Hex out.
Barjo out.
So gangster. Doesn't get...
Ow.
Oh.